On Lillian's 29th birthday, she invited many friends in the circle to gather. Elvis arrived late. He handed over a beautifully wrapped box, put his arm around Lillian's shoulder, and smiled warmly. "Happy birthday, my wife," her friends teased, urging her to quickly open the box and see what was inside. As the ribbon was untied, there was an exquisite lady's wristwatch in the box. It was the latest model of the brand she often wore. Lillian picked it up and examined it carefully. Just as she was about to express her gratitude, she noticed a small line of laser-engraved words on the watchband. "Stars and the moon." In an instant, Lillian realized that Elvis had mistakenly given her the gift intended for Luna. She didn't ask further questions and put on the watch with a smile. "It's very beautiful. I like it a lot. Thank you, Elvis." The man was focused on socializing and didn't notice the change in her address. He casually agreed. "I'll give you something better next year." The diamonds on the watch face were dazzling, reflecting the pregnancy report that Lillian hid by her side. She had a gentle smile on her face, but her heart was filled with unwavering determination. "Elvis, there's only 1 month left between us. For us, the three of us. There won't be a next year." Each word was spoken slowly, and every word represented the fading affection. "Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day." Now the story begins. The group of people were noisy, and it was already early morning when it ended. Elvis was dead drunk and was helped into the car by his friend. Lillian looked at the man sitting in the passenger seat. After a moment of thought, she changed the navigation and drove in the opposite direction of home. "Where are we going? Aren't we going home?" Probably seeing that the road outside the car window wasn't the way home. Even though Elvis wasn't fully sober from the alcohol, he still asked in a daze. Lillian replied indifferently, "To the place you want to go." The car soon drove to the gate of a luxurious residence. There was an access control system, and Lillian couldn't get in, so she had to park by the roadside. She fumbled and took the phone out of Elvis's pocket, and entered XY0327 to unlock it. At the beginning of their relationship, Elvis had told her the phone password. 0327 was not only her birthday but also the day they first met. Lillian had always been touched that a grown man like Elvis would care about such details, and every time she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel happy. It was only later that she learned that 0327 was also Luna's birthday. She smiled self-deprecatingly and dialed the top-pinned number. "Is that Luna?" "Elvis drank too much. Come and pick him up. We're downstairs at your place." The female voice on the other end of the phone was clearly astonished. It took a while for her to come to her senses and agree. Looking at Elvis's sleeping face, although he was so handsome, she felt an inexplicable sense of annoyance and didn't want to look at him any longer. She pushed the car door open and got out. The weather in March hadn't warmed up yet. Lillian wrapped her coat tightly around herself. On an impulse, she took out a cigarette from her pocket and lit it, but she stopped just as she was about to bring it to her mouth. She almost forgot that she was pregnant. She smiled bitterly and extinguished the cigarette. Her thoughts drifted away, further and further. She had never felt that any spring was as cold as this year's. "Sister-in-law." The woman's voice brought her thoughts back. Lillian glanced at the woman in front of her. She was obviously in a hurry. She came downstairs in a rush, with her hair loosely tied on one side, and she was still wearing pajamas with cartoon patterns on them. Lillian thought it looked familiar. Suddenly, she remembered that there was a pair of the same pajamas in Elvis's closet. At that time, she had mocked Elvis, a president in his 30s, for actually wearing cartoon pajamas in private. Now she knew that he was actually being silly with the person he loved. She couldn't help but laugh. This made Luna confused, so she could only say awkwardly, "Sister-in-law, why did you bring Elvis here? I really should have met you earlier. I've always wanted to, but I never had the time. I'm sorry to trouble you to come all the way here." "Sister-in-law." Lillian waved her hand. The words, "Stop pretending," were on the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed them back. She pointed at the drunk man in the car and said, "He wants to see you. Help him inside later. By the way." As if she suddenly remembered something, Lillian untied the watch and handed it to Luna along with the documents in her bag. "This is from Elvis to you. The packaging is gone. I hope you don't mind. Happy birthday. This is the divorce agreement. I've already signed it. I was going to ask him to sign it today, but he got drunk. Do me a favor and ask him to sign it when he sobers up tomorrow." After saying that, she opened the car door. The cold air rushed into the car, making Elvis shiver. When he saw the two women, he sobered up a great deal. He frowned and got out of the car, standing in front of Luna as if he was afraid that Lillian would hurt Luna. What are you going to do to Luna? Luna also shrank back behind him cooperatively, leaning against the car. Lillian watched his instinctive move to guard against her. She said calmly, I've handed the gift to Luna for you. Have a good birthday with her. I'm going back now. What are you up to this time? Elvis grabbed Lillian's hand and asked in confusion. He couldn't figure out what Lillian was planning. And she didn't go hysterical as she usually did when Luna was mentioned. Lillian gently pried his hand open, nodded at Luna, and then, just like when she came, she stepped on the gas and drove away gracefully. The two people left there stood looking at each other, speechless and at a loss. Without any longing or suspicion, Lillian slept extremely soundly that night. She was woken up by a series of phone calls. Hello, Elvis. What's the matter? Do you need me to send you your pajamas? Don't you have a spare set at Luna's place? Elvis was taken aback by her words, and his voice turned angry. Stop talking nonsense. Nothing happened between me and Luna. Don't think so dirty. Perhaps feeling guilty. His voice lowered. I didn't mean to send the wrong watch. I'll ask my secretary to send you your gift today. Oh. Lillian's voice was indifferent, and it was hard to tell her emotions. In previous years, he had always booked the gift and the restaurant early, looking forward to the day and making all kinds of excuses to decline Lillian's invitation and accompany Luna. This year, he could be with Luna openly, but he was trying his best to cover it up. Don't you have anything to ask me? Actually, I do. Lillian perked up. Did Luna give you the divorce agreement? There was a long silence on the other end of the phone, so long that Lillian thought the call had been disconnected. What divorce agreement? I don't know about it. Lillian sighed helplessly. Then come back today. Let's get a divorce. After all these years. It's really boring. I'm also tired and don't want to hold on anymore. Hearing this, Elvis lost his temper. His tone became sharp instantly, with a hint of sarcasm. Stop playing these tricks of playing hard to get. Okay. How many times do I have to tell you that Luna and I are innocent? We grew up together since we were children. If something were going to happen, it would have happened long ago. Would it be your turn? Don't think Luna is simple and kind and keep challenging our bottom line. Do you take divorce as a joke? You do this every now and then. Last time, I just went on a business trip with Luna. You couldn't get in touch with me, so you harassed my friends and asked them for Luna's contact information. Ask yourself, isn't what you did disgusting? Lillian, don't go too far. Everyone will get annoyed. He pinched the bridge of his nose. In fact, Luna had shown him the divorce agreement early in the morning. His first reaction was ridicule, and the second was embarrassment. Lillian, such a jealous woman, actually played the divorce trick in front of Luna, embarrassing him. In the end, wouldn't it be her who suffered? After all, between them, it was always Lillian who couldn't leave him. He waited arrogantly for Lillian to apologize to him. Unexpectedly, Lillian just said calmly, I see, and then hung up the phone. His words were blocked by the busy tone, and he felt annoyed for a moment. Just then, Luna handed him a cup of hot milk. He took it, and his furrowed brows relaxed. Luna, you're so considerate. Lillian curled her hair, put on lipstick, and drove the most expensive car in the garage at full speed to Elvis's company. Back then, she was so insecure that she insisted on following Elvis to the company. Elvis didn't want to see her, so he arranged a common employee position for her, and even said it was a good thing for the president's wife to start from the grassroots. The colleagues at the same level didn't dare to get too close to her, and the superiors didn't know how to assign work tasks to her. She was a unique existence in the company. Everyone stayed away from her, but she was always the topic of gossip. The other topic of gossip was Luna, because as soon as she joined the company, she was promoted to the president's special assistant by Elvis beyond the normal procedure. What a stark contrast. Lillian went all the way to the Human Resources Department and submitted her resignation. The employees knew her relationship with Elvis and secretly made an internal call to Luna, hoping that Luna would ask the president for his opinion. When Elvis heard Luna on the phone, he thought there was some work arrangement. While flipping through the documents, he asked, "What's wrong, Luna? What's the matter?" Luna lowered her eyes, as gentle as ever. "It's nothing." Lillian left the company and went straight to the law firm. She had made an appointment with the most famous law firm in the city long ago, just to solve the divorce dispute between her and Elvis. She had long known that Elvis wouldn't agree to her divorce request easily. It wasn't because he loved her so much, but because her thoughts had always been insignificant to him. She let out a sigh. Lillian. A magnetic and charming voice sounded. Lillian looked up and saw a man in a dark suit in front of her. He was tall and had deep eyebrows and eyes. She was so distracted that she didn't even notice that this person had walked up to her. She stood up embarrassedly. Sorry. The man was taken aback and casually showed a helpless smile. His tone became gentle. Lillian, don't you recognize me? Lillian examined him carefully and then pointed at the man in front of her in surprise. George. George was a prominent figure in Lillian's high school class. His family background, appearance, and character were all top-notch, and he was almost the crush of all the girls, except for Lillian. She had set her heart on Elvis. From high school to university and then after graduation, she had been like a tail, wholeheartedly pursuing him for a full 10 years before she could stand by his side legally. It was only now that she realized that the so-called happy ending was just self-deception. I heard that you were admitted to the best law university in the country when you graduated. I didn't expect to meet you here. Lillian's surprise was evident. George nodded with a smile and motioned for her to follow him into the VIP room. He said, after graduating with a master's degree, I opened this law firm. What about you? Lillian, what are you doing now? I heard from my family in high school that you had the intention of studying abroad. Lillian said awkwardly, no, I finally decided to develop in the country. Now, I'm a housewife. Lillian didn't say more. She didn't want to tell others that she gave up the opportunity to study abroad in order to follow Elvis. She chose to change her college application and went to the ordinary university where Elvis was with a high score. In the end, she wasted her time on love and trapped herself in the lonely island of marriage. She took the coffee that George handed her and slowly said in the steaming heat, George, I came here this time because I want a divorce. From Elvis. George's eyes were filled with complex emotions. 1,000 emotions merged into a feeling of pity. After a long silence, he nodded. Okay, I'll help you. Late at night, when Lillian opened the door, she saw Elvis sitting on the sofa with a gloomy face. Where have you been? Why did you come back so late? Lillian naturally changed her shoes and put down her bag. She didn't give him too many glances and said indifferently, taking care of some business. Elvis stood up unhappily and said, I have a business dinner later. I want to wear the gray shirt you bought for me. Lillian didn't even look up. It's in the third cabinet of the cloakroom. Seeing that Lillian had no intention of getting it for him, Elvis went upstairs angrily. After changing his clothes, he walked to the door, cleared his throat, and said, I'm leaving now. Lillian had already moved to the kitchen and didn't give him any response. Seeing this, Elvis quickly walked to the kitchen and leaned against the door to repeat, I'm leaving now. Lillian glanced at him. I heard you. Elvis seemed dissatisfied with her reaction. His thin lips pressed into a straight line, and he let out a cold snort. Aren't you going to ask me who I'm going with? Aren't you going to ask me what I'm going to do after dinner? Hearing this, Lillian smiled. In the past, every time he went on a business trip or had a dinner party, she would tell him to drink less and come home early, and to push all the things to his assistant and secretary. Her simple reminders were regarded by him as constraints and bonds. He had complained countless times that Lillian was prying too much into his life and not giving him freedom. Once, during a business dinner, he handled the whole drinking session alone. When he got home, his face was pale and he was sweating profusely. At that time, there was an unprecedented heavy snowfall. The road from the villa area to the urban area was covered with snow. The car caught fire and then broke down. She spent the whole night struggling and finally managed to send him to the hospital. Only then did she realize that there was a warm flow between her legs. On that snowy and windy night, she lost their first child. But the first thing Elvis said to her when he woke up was, Don't cause trouble for Luna. I took her there. She couldn't handle those old guys, so I had to step in. The more I drank, the less she had to drink. His eyes were filled with so much doting when he said that he didn't notice Lillian's vulnerability and frailty beside him at all. Lillian didn't tell him about the miscarriage, afraid that he would feel guilty if he knew. And indeed, he didn't notice it, because he was too busy to spare even a bit of attention for his wife. Lillian's eyes darkened, and her voice was devoid of any emotion. I won't ask any more. Elvis, go ahead. In response to her, Elvis slammed the door angrily. Lillian didn't understand why he was angry. Didn't she give him the freedom he had always dreamed of? Lillian, Come and pick me up after my business dinner. The sudden notification sound startled Lillian. When she saw that it was a message from Elvis, she thought for a moment and then forwarded the message to Luna. There were successive, typing, messages on the other side, but in the end, there was no reply. Lillian knew that she had seen it and didn't bother anymore until there was a loud knocking on the door in the middle of the night. Elvis was being supported by Luna and standing at the door, reeking of alcohol. The moment he saw Lillian, he pushed Luna away, his eyes red, and looked at Lillian with a wronged pout. I asked you to pick me up, Luna said awkwardly. Sister-in-law. Elvis was clamoring to go home, so I brought him back. Maybe he's tired of staying at my place. Since that's the case, I'll be leaving now. Lillian looked at the two people in front of her expressionlessly, pushed Elvis back to Luna's side, and yawned. The master bedroom is on the second floor. Don't take him upstairs. There's a guest room on the first floor. You can deal with him as you see fit. After saying that, she ignored Elvis's darkened face and trotted back to her room to sleep. The sounds of concern and heavy breathing from downstairs kept reaching her ears. Lillian was annoyed, so she simply put on earplugs. She had a good night's sleep. The next morning, Lillian ignored Elvis, who had a gloomy face in the living room, and walked straight to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Finally, after Elvis coughed for the 33rd time, Lillian noticed him and poked her head out of the kitchen. Has Luna left? Then I won't make breakfast for her. Elvis could no longer contain his dissatisfaction and walked forward to grab her wrist. What kind of wife are you? When your husband is drunk, you actually let another woman take care of him while you sleep soundly upstairs. You used to hate it the most when I was with Luna. Why are you pushing me towards her? At the end of his words, Elvis's eyes were red, and his voice involuntarily softened. Lillian couldn't help but laugh. So, he knew that she hated him being with Luna. Then why did he keep ignoring her feelings and chasing after Luna time and time again? She was just fulfilling his wish. After all, every time Elvis was drunk, he would call out Luna's name. Lillian tried to shake off his hand, but Elvis didn't budge at all. Lillian had no choice but to point at the eggs in the pan that were about to burn. Only then did Elvis let go of her hand. Lillian turned sideways to him and stir-fried the eggs, saying the most words she had said to Elvis in these few days. Elvis, I'm doing this for your own good. Luna is your special assistant. It's only right for her to take care of you. Besides, it was so late, and I didn't feel at ease letting her go home alone. What's more, weren't you two having a great time last night? What do you mean by that? Nothing happened between us. I was sleeping the whole time. And even if you don't trust me, you can't maliciously speculate about Luna. She's so innocent that she blushes when hearing such topics. How could she do anything to me while I was drunk? Elvis said in disbelief. Lillian didn't argue with him and carried the breakfast out of the kitchen. In the photo sent by Luna, the man's eyes were blurred. His face was flushed, and Luna's hand was placed on the man's chest. The picture was ambiguous and hazy. They were all adults, and it was clear to anyone what was going on. Yet Luna still pretended to be innocent. After sending the photo, she added a tongue-out emoji and said coquettishly, Sister-in-law, brotherly is so cute like this. I couldn't help but take a photo. I hope sister-in-law doesn't mind. She didn't even bother to recall the message and showed it off openly. Presumably, she was certain that even if Elvis knew about it, he wouldn't say anything to her. This was the innocent and pure Luna in his words. Thinking of Elvis's touch just now, Lillian felt disgusted, as if she had eaten a dead fly. Elvis quickly followed her, only to find that she had only prepared one serving of breakfast. Why didn't you make my meal? Lillian said in surprise. You said that you don't like the food I cook and that I don't have to make it for you in the future. Elvis then remembered that before, Lillian always took the trouble to bring him food, saying that his stomach was not good and the food outside was not healthy, and that it was more reassuring to eat the food she made at home. At that time, he waved his hand and asked Luna to pour the food she brought into the trash, saying that he would rather eat in the cafeteria with Luna than eat the food she made. She was standing at the door of his office then, watching helplessly as Luna frowned and took away the carefully prepared meal and dumped it. When Luna passed by her, she sneered disdainfully and whispered tauntingly in her ear, Sister-in-law, stop doing these thankless things. The more you try, the more distant Elvis will be from you. However, there are people who don't do anything but just stand there, and Elvis is willing to give his heart to treat her well. Don't you think it's funny? After saying that, she called Elvis to go and eat. The doting in Elvis's eyes was about to overflow. and his tone was filled with an indescribable ambiguity. Wait for me. Throughout the whole process, Elvis didn't look at Lillian even once, not even giving her a glance. Many employees saw this scene, and their inquisitive gazes were like knives stabbing into Lillian's heart. That day, she stood there blankly for a long time. Elvis was extremely embarrassed and stammered, trying to explain. Lillian interrupted him. "The soup you asked Luna to pour away. I started boiling it the day before and boiled it for a full 10 hours. I learned to cook those dishes for half a month and only dared to bring them to you after making sure they didn't taste bad." The young lady who had never touched water for household chores before, who had never even cooked noodles, was willing to wash her hands and cook for him. She was splashed by the oil and burned by the pot, but she just smiled it off because all she could think of was to let the person she loved eat the food she made with her own hands. And then it was poured into the trash right in front of her. There was silence, a long silence in the air, only the faint sound of Lillian chewing her food. Lillian stood up with the plate in her hand. Elvis finally managed to break the silence, perhaps because of his guilty conscience. His voice was not loud. "Go to the old house tonight. Grandma misses you." "Okay." When Elvis heard this answer, he was obviously taken aback. He always felt that Lillian's reaction was somewhat different from before. In the past, whenever she heard that they were going back to the old house, Lillian was always very excited. She would prepare her clothes in advance, try them on one by one in front of him, and ask for his opinion. He just found it annoying and perfunctorily answered, turning a blind eye to the hurt in Lillian's eyes. This time, she was no longer delighted, nor did she ask for his opinion. It seemed that something really had changed. The old house of Elvis's family was simple and elegant. Elvis's grandmother, father, and mother had already been waiting at the gate for the young couple. The car stopped steadily. Elvis got out of the car first. Just as he was about to open the car door for Lillian, Lillian got out of the car by herself. She glanced at Elvis's outstretched arm and carried her bag and walked over. Elvis awkwardly maintained the posture of waiting for Lillian to take his arm. He came to his senses only when he was called by Elvis's mother. He gave Lillian a complaining look but found that she didn't even give him a glance. During the meal, Elvis's grandmother smiled and stroked Lillian's hand, saying kindly, "Lillian, you and Elvis have been married for 3 years. When will you let Grandma hold her great-grandchild?" Lillian didn't say anything, but Elvis became interested and smiled confidently. "Grandma, this year. For sure this year." The two of them stayed in the old house, lying on the same bed as Elvis. Lillian was obviously a bit uncomfortable. During this period, she had gotten used to sleeping alone and couldn't fall asleep no matter how she tossed and turned. In the dark, Elvis's hand slowly reached towards Lillian's waist. The sudden warm touch on her skin startled Lillian, and she immediately sat up. Elvis hugged her from behind, his tone tender. "Wife, let's not disappoint Grandma." "Okay." Lillian pushed him away. Elvis still wanted to move forward and kiss her. When their eyes met, he saw the coldness in Lillian's eyes. He froze for a moment. Lillian pulled the quilt over and forced a smile, saying, "Elvis, we're at Grandma's house now, so I won't go to the guest room. I'm tired and just want to have a good sleep. I don't want to do anything else." The two of them lay back to back, with a distance between them all the time. "Wife, since when did you stop calling me husband and start calling me by my name?" In response to him was Lillian's light and even breathing. Elvis's grandmother wanted to keep Lillian for another night, but Lillian said that she had an appointment and couldn't break it. So she left Elvis's old house with Elvis. Elvis held the steering wheel with one hand and asked casually, "Didn't you just gather with them on your birthday a few days ago? Why are you gathering again?" Lillian closed her eyes and rested, replying indifferently, "Other people." "Who?" "An old classmate." Lillian smelled the strong perfume smell in the car. She frowned and complained that the smell was too pungent. Just as she was about to throw it away, she saw the obvious star and moon logo on it. She shrugged and put the air freshener back in its place. This action caught Elvis's attention. He said, "If it smells bad, just throw it away," and picked up the air freshener. He also saw the star and moon logo. He knew why Lillian was silent and tried to explain. "Luna left it in the car. It's not mine." Lillian responded with an, and then said, "Just leave it there." Elvis put the air freshener back in its place reluctantly. "Luna has a good taste in choosing things. You'll fall in love with this smell after smelling it more." When Lillian arrived at the restaurant, George had already been there for a while. He pushed the menu towards Lillian. being polite and gentlemanly. Lillian, you look beautiful today. Lillian pursed her lips. She had never heard such words from Elvis. Thank you. The two of them had a pleasant conversation. It had been a long time since Lillian had chatted so relaxedly with the opposite sex. We got to know each other at that gala party. Right. We were both hosts. At that time, I was so busy eavesdropping on Elvis singing that I didn't rehearse well. I must have caused you a lot of trouble. Right. When talking about their high school days when they were 16 or 17 years old, Lillian smiled brightly, her cheeks blushing, and her eyes curved. George was momentarily stunned. George quickly took a sip of water to hide his gaffe. He thought he had calmed down, but the blush gradually rising on his face betrayed him. Actually, I knew you earlier than you think. In the first year of high school. In Teacher Lee's office. You went to get books, and I went to grade papers. That was the first time we met. Our two classes had physical education together. In fact, we've seen each other many times. He didn't tell Lillian that. In fact, his gaze often fell on her. That bright and beautiful girl often followed a boy behind, laughing and playing. Some classmates saw his burning gaze and teased him maliciously. Ah, the top student won't fall for that girl from class 3 who's always fawning over others. Will he? That girl is well known in our school for being a sycophant. You're going to be disappointed in your love. After that day, George received the first punishment in his life. Because of a fight, his thoughts returned to the woman in front of him. After not seeing each other for many years, her facial features hadn't changed, but there was an indelible weariness hidden in her eyes. George knew that it was that man who had failed her and dimmed her light. His hand holding the water cup involuntarily tightened. When Lillian heard his words, she was taken aback. At that time, I set my heart on Elvis. But it's okay. I've come to my senses now. By the way, how's the progress? In a month. You'll be free in a month. Even if he doesn't agree, you can file for a divorce through litigation. It was almost the same as the date she had expected. Lillian nodded in satisfaction. Lillian, I wish you freedom. I wish you will soon regain your true self. They had a pleasant meal. It was already late at night when George drove Lillian home. The car stopped, and George took the initiative to help Lillian unbuckle her seatbelt. When Lillian thanked him and was about to get out of the car, he finally couldn't hold back and revealed his true feelings. Lillian, it may not be appropriate to say this now, but I cherish our reunion so much. I had this ring made in Switzerland. At that time, everyone said that you would go to Switzerland to study abroad. I even wondered if I would run into you on some street. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. In fact, I've been thinking about you for the past 10-odd years, but you got married, and I couldn't disturb you, so I could only bury all my feelings in my heart. I'm very happy to see you again. George handed over the ring. His face was obscure under the dim light in the car, and it was hard to tell what expression he had. Only the fingertips holding the ring box trembled slightly, revealing his inner nervousness. I won't force you to give me an answer. You've just managed to get out of a failed marriage. I won't let you make the same mistake again. I'm giving you this ring with no other intention. I just want to speak my mind and put an end to my 10-year secret love. Don't feel burdened by it. Lillian looked at the little girl dancing on the ring. It was her when she performed ballet at the age of 17. The girl was surrounded by sparkling diamonds, shining brightly and dazzlingly. This was how George saw her in his heart. The brilliant her in the past, not the gloomy her now. George. Lillian wiped her eyes and said with difficulty, George, I'm pregnant. It's Elvis's. Elvis was very dissatisfied with Lillian coming back so late. When he saw her getting out of a man's car, his anger was immediately ignited. As soon as Lillian entered the door, she was bombarded with a series of questions from him. Why did you get out of a man's car? Who is he? Did you go out today to have a date with him? Lillian, what do you mean? Can't I satisfy you? Lillian was confused and looked at him in bewilderment. I've already told you that it was just to catch up with an old classmate. Why are you getting so worked up about it? Who's worked up? I'm not worked up at all. Lillian, you're a married woman. Is it reasonable for you to be out having a catch-up with a member of the opposite sex this late? Do you even know what the word discretion means? Do you want me to write it down for you? Lillian replied seriously. After thinking for a moment, she added, Elvis, actually, I wasn't used to you being with Luna every night from the start. But now I've gotten used to it. And you will too. By the way, aren't you going to see her tonight? Elvis was like a powder keg, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. What would I go to see her for? Lillian, how many times do I have to tell you that my relationship with Luna is as pure as it can be? We're just good friends who are closer than siblings. Don't project your filthy thoughts onto us. Lillian pursed her lips. The intimacy between them was something that siblings couldn't have and good friends couldn't either. But by using a different label, he was trying to make those actions seem reasonable. She remembered the first time she caught them together. Luna was walking down the street arm in arm with Elvis, chatting and laughing merrily, while Elvis was holding many luxury brand shopping bags in his hands. The salesperson envied them and said, "Goodness, there aren't many good men like this anymore. I vow to be a vegetarian for the rest of my life to have a husband like this." At that time, Lillian wasn't used to Luna's presence yet. She stopped them in disbelief and asked Elvis for an explanation. Luna smiled and tightened her grip on the man's arm. She tilted her head and pouted sweetly at Elvis. "Brother, who is she?" Elvis frowned in disgust, his voice completely devoid of warmth. The look of helplessness on his face made Lillian almost think that it was she herself who was being intimate with someone else in public. "Lillian, go home." Lillian's eyes turned red. She rushed forward like a madwoman and pulled the two of them apart. In the scuffle, amidst Luna's screams, she was pushed hard to the ground by Elvis. He shielded Luna behind him, even though it was Lillian who was hurt. "You're being crazy. Don't scare Luna. We're just good friends who are closer than siblings. Can't you be more magnanimous?" Some people had already picked up their phones to record this rare gossip moment, perhaps worried about losing face. Elvis quickly pulled Luna away. There was a triumphant glint in Luna's eyes, and she mouthed to Lillian, "So pitiful." Lillian's long hair covered her profile. In an instant, it was as if all her strength had been drained from her, and she couldn't get up. Her knee was scratched and bleeding, and her heart was bleeding too. Now, she threw that sentence back at Elvis. "We're just good friends who are closer than siblings too. You're being unreasonable." The boomerang hit Elvis, and he could only hide his embarrassment with anger. He picked up his clothes and walked out of the room quickly, looking extremely angry. Spring came slowly, and the city finally welcomed a bit of warmth. However, Lillian and Elvis fell into a cold war. In the past few years, they had never had a cold war before. Whenever Elvis showed signs of being unhappy, Lillian would take the initiative to apologize, take the blame, and do everything she could to make him happy, even though it was never her fault. Lillian was really idle these days. She had already started learning how to make baby clothes from online videos. A friend called and asked if she had quarreled with Elvis recently, saying that she had seen a strange woman in Elvis's Instagram moments and told Lillian to be on guard. She agreed and scrolled through the moments. Sure enough, she saw Elvis's post. He was someone who loved documenting his life. He wasn't the kind of boring man who rarely posted on moments. He had posted pictures of cats and dogs, taken photos of flowers and plants, and when in the mood, he would briefly record his feelings in words. However, among all those moments, there wasn't even a trace of Lillian. On the day they got their marriage certificate, Lillian was in high spirits, editing pictures, adjusting filters, and creating a 9-square grid post. She sent it to him, hoping that he would also post on moments to announce the good news. What did he say then? Oh, he only said a few words. "Childish. I don't want to post it." Now, he could naturally post a photo of another woman's smiling face with the caption, "The moon is shining." Lillian scrolled down, and Luna's moments also came into view. She was more subtle than Elvis but far bolder at the same time. She just posted a photo of the shadows of the two of them. The two figures, one tall and one short, were staggered, and the hands at both ends were tightly holding each other. She wrote, "Stars and the moon, you and me, a perfect match, never to be separated." Lillian walked to the window and looked up. In the distant night sky, the stars and the moon were indeed accompanying each other. She liked their posts and then opened the chat window with Elvis. After deleting and rephrasing the words several times, it became a simple sentence. "Elvis, are you there?" When Elvis saw the message, he sat up abruptly, which startled Luna. Luna asked tentatively, "Is sister-in-law giving in to you?" "That's great. I told you our moments posts would definitely work. No married woman would want to see her husband post something like that. And sister-in-law is no exception. You two will make up soon." Upon hearing this, Elvis wore a triumphant expression, as if he had already firmly got the upper hand over Lillian. He just waited for her apology message to arrive so that he could go home and lecture her with good reason. But in the next second, a new message popped up. "Did you block Grandma?" Mom and Dad, Grandma has a weak heart. You'd better not let her see these. Remember to check. Have a good time. Elvis gritted his teeth in anger and smashed his phone. A rush of pent-up anger welled up in his chest, neither subsiding nor dissipating. Feeling extremely sad, he decided to ignore Lillian completely. Lillian thought that it was actually quite fine to not see or think about each other and just count down the days until they separated. Anyway, she had already gotten used to living without Elvis. She lived an uneventful life alone, but that seemingly ordinary morning became a lingering nightmare for Lillian for the rest of her life. She couldn't remember what she had been doing before losing consciousness. Was she still making baby clothes? Or was she choosing a gift for Elvis's grandma? Or was she browsing the scenery of Switzerland online? She couldn't remember. All she remembered was that when she came to her senses, a tearing pain shot through her lower body. The pain was so intense that she curled up, spasming and shaking uncontrollably. Before the excruciating pain spread to all her nerves, she used up her last bit of strength to dial the emergency contact number. Elvis. Her painful and dry gasps drowned out the busy tone for more than 10 seconds. When the call was connected, a soft and delicate female voice came from the other end. Sister-in-law, Elvis is busy. In an instant, it was as if something had collapsed. She immediately lost all her strength, and the world in front of her eyes turned dark and pitch black. When Elvis heard the incoming call, he held his phone and smiled stupidly. He thought that Lillian had finally swallowed her pride and was trying to placate him. However, he still wanted to give her a show of power as punishment for the Cold War. So he handed the phone to Luna. He was certain that given Lillian's personality, she would definitely call again. He planned to answer the call nonchalantly after she called a few more times and accept her apology. But he never received a second call. When she opened her eyes, all Lillian saw was white. She realized that she was in the hospital. She got up in a panic and groped around, tears streaming down uncontrollably. Where's the baby? Where's my baby? George held her hand and gently pulled her into his arms, feeling the wetness on his shoulder. His voice also became a bit choked up. Lillian, the baby's fetal heartbeat has stopped. The person in his arms stopped crying abruptly. Her body stiffened, and she slowly went limp. Lillian's eyes gradually dimmed. She mechanically stroked her belly and murmured blankly, "Baby, don't leave me, baby." There were only half a month left, and she would have been able to leave Elvis, go abroad with the baby, and focus on the pregnancy in peace, completely away from all the entanglements. She had been longing for the baby to be born, to grow up, to hear the baby call her Mom, for the first time, and to collect the baby's first lost milk tooth. She had been looking forward to participating in every important moment of the baby's life, gazing at him and loving him for a long time as a mother. But now, there was only one left instead of two. The hearts that were connected now had only one heart left. She asked George weakly, "Why?" George held her and kept stroking her head, his voice full of pity. "The last miscarriage took a toll on your body. This pregnancy was never going to be viable. It was already a miracle that the baby developed a fetal heartbeat and accompanied you for 3 months. Lillian, the nurse just gave you some medicine. You'll have the surgery in an hour." The ward was silent, and Lillian's tears flowed violently but soundlessly. The nurse wheeled her to the operating room. It was a Monday working day, and there were always a lot of people. The nurse directed the pedestrians to make way. Lillian turned her head to the side, with tears still on her face. In the crowd coming and going, she suddenly saw a familiar figure. Elvis was holding Luna's hand, waiting outside the obstetrics and gynecology clinic. She didn't know what Elvis had said, but Luna blushed shyly, covered her face, and giggled. She playfully slapped the man beside her. They looked just like a loving couple in the throes of passion. George covered her eyes. "Lillian, don't look." The anesthetic seeped into her limbs and body, taking effect slowly. The operating room was so close to the clinic, just separated by a wall. She was inside suffering the pain of losing her child, while he was outside flirting with someone else. Countless memories flooded her mind, and she had never been so clear-headed as she was at that moment. She remembered the first time she met Elvis. The young man was full of spirit, standing in front of her and saying dashingly, "You little hoodlums, aren't you ashamed of bullying a girl? If you've got the guts, come at me." Then he really got beaten up badly, but he still played the hero in front of Lillian, rubbing his bruised eyes and saying that he would always look out for her. She remembered Elvis's shock and surprise when he found out that they were going to the same university. He grabbed her hand and sternly told her to change her college application back, saying that she couldn't delay her future just to be with him. She remembered the year when he finally accepted her confession. The spring was so warm, much warmer than this year. He said, "Lillian, since I've promised you, I'll treat you well for the rest of my life." She also remembered the first time she heard the name, Luna, and how Elvis had looked dazed and flustered. She remembered Elvis's unconscious murmurs when he was drunk, and how every Luna was filled with deep affection that couldn't be dissolved. She remembered the first time he quarreled with her because of Luna and the first time he didn't come home because of Luna. She remembered so many things, one by one, all of them. Those experiences of secret love and heartbreak, love and the lack thereof. She remembered them all so clearly, truly so clearly. Before her consciousness was completely numbed, Lillian wondered how, with her excellent grades, she suddenly didn't know how to write the word love anymore. Pada. A tear rolled down the corner of her eye and soaked into the pillow. There is no sorrow greater than the death of the heart. Lillian's heart had completely died. Elvis had never felt that days could be so hard. Lillian ignored him, and he couldn't bring himself to reach out to her either. Fortunately, his birthday was approaching. He was sure that Lillian would definitely celebrate his birthday properly. Then he could take the opportunity to reconcile, and all the previous unpleasantness would fade away. Although he was really bothered by Lillian having other male friends, well, he would have to have a good talk with her then and tell her that he was all she needed in her world. Elvis stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the 10th or so floor and let out a sigh. George took care of Lillian without even changing his clothes. From being clumsy at first to becoming more and more proficient, he often brought Lillian some new and interesting things to relieve her boredom in the hospital. "You've been taking care of me here every day. What about the work at the law firm?" Lillian asked with a smile as she watched George peeling an apple attentively. He looked up at her, his eyes focused and gentle. "I don't have many cases on my hands. After you came to me, I've been concentrating on handling your case and pushed the others to my subordinates. I'm quite free now. By the way, what would you like to eat tonight?" After saying that, he handed the apple to Lillian. Lillian took it but didn't answer his question. "I rejected you, but you're still so good to me. It's really embarrassing." "I'm more than willing," George blurted out instinctively. The atmosphere fell into an awkward silence. Just then, the phone rang and broke the stillness. "It's a call from Elvis. Do you want to answer it?" George touched his nose and handed the phone to Lillian, who was not in a good condition to move. "I don't want to answer it. Just hang up." Lillian didn't take the phone and chewed on the apple bite by bite. It was sweet. Another call came in, and Lillian became impatient. "If it's Elvis, just hang up." "No, block him." George took a look and said, "It's Judy." Judy was a mutual friend of hers and Elvis's. Even if her relationship with Elvis was coming to an end, she still had to save face for her friend. She cleared her throat and tried to make her voice sound less weak. "Hello, Judy. What's up, Elvis? You talk." The voice on the other end of the phone changed, and it was a voice that Lillian was all too familiar with. "Dear wife, have you forgotten what day it is today?" Elvis's voice carried obvious grievance and dissatisfaction. Lillian rarely heard him speak to her like this. "What day is it?" "I don't know. It's my birthday," Elvis shouted excitedly. He never expected that Lillian would actually forget his birthday. No, that couldn't be right. Lillian must be planning to give him a surprise and was pretending to have forgotten on purpose. It must be that way. He then said pitifully, "Dear wife, stop playing coy. I know you couldn't have forgotten my birthday. Are you at home now? I'll come pick you up. All our friends are here, and we're going to have a get-together. I'm already looking forward to what gift you've prepared for me." Lillian was silent for a long time. Wife, are you listening? Elvis, do you remember what happened on this day last year?" Upon hearing this, Elvis paused. On this day last year, Lillian had thrown a party at home, inviting all their friends to celebrate and promising to drink until they dropped. She had decorated the house from top to bottom, made a 3-layer cake with her own hands, bought Elvis his favorite gaming items, and even hidden a commemorative oil painting that she had spent a month painting, planning to take it out as a surprise gift when the lights came on after he blew out the candles. However, until the clock struck 12 and the hour hand completed a full circle, Elvis still hadn't shown up. Lillian called him countless times and sent countless Instagram messages, but received no response. She even suspected that something had happened to him and was about to call the police. until he posted a Instagram Moments video of himself blowing out candles. In the video, Elvis held a small cake, closed his eyes tightly, and made a wish devoutly. Occasionally, a coquettish laugh could be heard in the background. At 28, I hope that both the person I love and the person who loves me will be happy. After saying this, he looked at the camera with deep affection. Lillian knew that he wasn't looking at her. Everything became clear. Elvis was with Luna. Lillian held back her tears and dealt with those friends alone. The friends understood the situation without saying a word and pretended that nothing had happened. In fact, they were so embarrassed that they didn't know what to do and looked at Lillian with sympathy. At the birthday party, the main character never showed up from beginning to end. After seeing off all the friends, Lillian looked at the big cake she had made with her own hands. Her emotions, like a flood that had burst through the dam, were uncontrollable and rushed out violently. She grabbed the cake and stuffed it into her mouth bite by bite. Only when she couldn't fit any more did she plop down on the ground and burst into tears. She had lost all her dignity. Elvis had made her lose all her dignity. Perhaps recalling that incident, Elvis's expression changed, and he was clearly a bit embarrassed. He wanted to defend himself, opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a single syllable. It seemed he had indeed done something wrong. Elvis didn't make any excuses. Lillian was somewhat taken aback. She didn't waste any more words and simply said, "Have a good time." Before hanging up the phone, she didn't even say, "Happy birthday," to him. Elvis just felt a sense of annoyance in his heart. He picked up the glass of wine beside him and downed it in one gulp. He decided to do something. Lillian had been a bit strange recently, but he couldn't put his finger on exactly what had changed. Clearly, he was now free and unrestrained, not bound by anything. But he always felt a vague sense of unease in his heart. When will she stop being so petty? Elvis sighed in distress. Soon, he came up with a good idea. Although Lillian didn't respond much to his messages, she surely couldn't refuse a work arrangement. Once the two of them met at the company, wouldn't Lillian come crawling back to make up with him? With this in mind, he immediately took action and asked his secretary to call the HR manager upstairs. "Transfer Lillian from the marketing department up here to be my special assistant," Elvis said awkwardly. The HR manager was just about to say something when he was interrupted by Elvis. "Give her the same treatment as Luna." The HR manager was shocked. He didn't understand the boss's train of thought, but he still told the truth. "President, Mrs. Lillian has already resigned." "What?" Elvis's shock wasn't feigned. He stood up with a bang, causing the water in the glass on the table to slosh around. The HR manager replied in confusion. "President, I called you on the internal line the day Lillian resigned. Didn't you know? It was 3 weeks ago." Elvis thought carefully and confirmed that he hadn't received the message. His eyes darkened, as if thinking of something. He waved his hand to dismiss the HR manager. "Wait a minute. Call Luna here." Luna was wearing a gentle light blue professional suit today. She swayed gracefully and walked up to Elvis with a smile on her face. Noticing that Elvis looked unhappy, she quickly asked, "Elvis, what's wrong?" Elvis stood up and took a step closer, getting as close as he could. His warm breath fanned across Luna's face, making Luna blush shyly. The next second, he opened his mouth, and the words he said made Luna freeze instantly, feeling as if she had fallen into an ice cave. "Luna, did you know that Lillian has resigned?" "George, how many days are left?" Lillian looked out the window at the greenery. In a good mood, George looked at his phone and replied, "You can be discharged from the hospital tomorrow." "I meant, how many days are left until the divorce from Elvis?" George smiled sheepishly and then answered seriously, 3 days. Elvis ran home like crazy. He no longer cared about his so-called dignity. He just wanted to see Lillian right now. Luna admitted that she hadn't told Elvis about Lillian's resignation. She thought that Lillian was insignificant to him, and her resignation was naturally a minor matter that didn't need to be specifically told to him. Elvis was furious and pushed Luna away, his voice icy cold. "Who gave you the right to make decisions on your own? Who said she's insignificant to me?" But he still couldn't bear to say a harsh word to Luna. She was so innocent and kind, and it was forgivable for her to make mistakes occasionally. He shouldn't have been so angry with her, or he might scare her. Thinking of this, Elvis's tone softened again. "You go and attend to your own business. I'm going home." He pushed the door open, gasping for breath. The familiar smell of home wafted over, but he didn't see Lillian anywhere. He searched the living room, the kitchen, the master bedroom. all the places where Lillian used to stay. Wife, wife. Elvis called out for her both upstairs and downstairs but received no response. He went back to the master bedroom and accidentally saw the calendar that Lillian had placed on the bedside table. The date 3 days later was circled with a red pen, and 2 small characters were written beside it. New beginning. Elvis panicked. He couldn't explain what Lillian had done. Looking up, on the huge wedding photo hanging on the wall, Lillian was smiling sweetly at him. That wedding photo was taken only after Lillian begged him for 3 whole days to spare the time to accompany her. He suddenly had a premonition. He was going to lose Lillian. Elvis still managed to find Lillian. He even asked his grandmother to call Lillian, and only then did Lillian reveal that she was in the hospital. When he rushed to the hospital in a hurry, George happened to go out to buy food. Lillian was alone, leaning against the bed and staring blankly at the tree outside the window. She seemed to have lost weight after not seeing her for many days. Lillian heard the noise and looked towards the door. Elvis was panting, and the sweat had dampened the bangs on his forehead. A look of guilt appeared on his fair face. Wife, I'm sorry, I'm late. Lillian didn't understand what kind of hero's return drama he was playing and didn't reply. Wife, what's wrong with you? Elvis sat down by the bedside. He reached out his hand, wanting to hug Lillian, but Lillian turned her head away, politely and distantly refusing him. It was just a minor cold. I didn't take it seriously, and it turned into pneumonia. It's nothing serious. I'll be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. Please tell Grandma not to worry. A look of hurt flashed in Elvis's eyes, and he asked hesitantly, Wife, why did you quit working at Elvis Corporation? What's so special about the day 3 days later? And why did you mark it specifically? He paused but still didn't ask the question. Do you still love me? After the day of the miscarriage, Lillian had imagined many times how she would react if she saw Elvis again. Would she still cry? Would she still be angry? However, when he was really standing in front of her, she found that her heart didn't stir at all. She had never been so calm. She didn't plan to tell Elvis the whole story. Facing him, she was too tired. So tired that it took effort to say even one more word. So, she made up an excuse. I didn't want to work anymore. It wasn't interesting. So I quit. 3 days later. I mistook your birthday for 3 days later. My memory is getting worse and worse now. I'm sorry. Elvis let out a sigh of relief and felt at ease. He didn't notice the flaws in Lillian's words. What a clumsy excuse. She cared about him so much that how could she have mistaken his birthday? Lillian could even recite that string of numbers backwards. But he was too confident. He was certain that Lillian loved him, so she couldn't possibly lie to him. With his doubts cleared up, Elvis was especially relaxed. He held Lillian's hand and said pitifully, Wife, when you've recovered, let's have a child. Whether it's a boy or a girl, I'll love it. It would be even better if we could have a girl who looks like you. These words touched the deepest wound in Lillian's heart. It had been so hard for her to bury the pain of losing the baby in her heart. But now Elvis had dug it up and was rubbing salt in the wound. She coldly shook off his hand. Elvis didn't know what had made Lillian unhappy. He still wanted to reach out and touch her. But Lillian lay back on the bed before he could, turned over, and faced away from him. Elvis, you should go. I want to rest. Elvis heard the hint of dismissal in her words and said firmly, I'm your husband, and it's my duty to take care of you. I'm not leaving tonight. I'll stay here with you. Lillian didn't say anything until Elvis received a phone call and his expression began to show indecision. Lillian noticed his hesitation and said calmly, If you have something to do, go ahead and take care of it. I have a nurse here. Hearing this, Elvis left in a hurry, promising repeatedly that he would come to see her again tomorrow. Lillian heard Elvis's hurried footsteps gradually fading away. She sat up and turned off the screen of her phone. Before the phone screen went dark, it was on the Instagram chat page between Lillian and Luna. In the green chat box, Lillian's messages were full of determination. Luna, Elvis came to see me. Find an excuse to call him away. We're getting divorced soon. I won't stand between you two anymore. Seize the opportunity. Good luck. Luna pretended to be ill and called Elvis away. Between the two of them, he once again chose his moon, without hesitation. After Elvis left, George pushed the door open and entered. You saw Elvis. I saw Elvis. The two spoke simultaneously, saying the same words. George lowered his eyes. He had heard the entire conversation clearly from outside the door. He didn't come in, not because he didn't have the courage to face Lillian's husband, but because he couldn't let Lillian be wrongly accused of any unfounded rumors during her marriage. He loved her and respected her, so he wanted to do everything he could to shield her from the wind and rain. I want to go to Switzerland. Once I've taken care of all this, I'll leave and fulfill the dream that I couldn't achieve when I was young. George, thank you for taking care of me. I don't know how to repay you, so I'll double the lawyer's fee for you. Inadvertently, a happy expression appeared on Lillian's face. Now she was full of expectations for her future life. George remained silent, and his bangs covered his eyes, making it hard to tell what he was feeling. George. Seeing that George didn't reply, Lillian called his name again. I don't want the money. George's voice was very soft, and Lillian didn't hear it clearly, so she asked him to repeat it. George raised his eyes, his gaze focused and determined. He just stared into Lillian's eyes. I don't want the money. Lillian, I already have more than enough money. I don't want your favor either. I don't want you to owe anyone, including me. I just hope that you can be healthy and happy and live the life you want. Switzerland is a beautiful but lonely country. If you ever feel lonely, call me, and I'll be there in front of you as quickly as possible. Lillian, I can't bear to see you alone, but I'll give you absolute freedom. I've loved you for 13 years exactly. I love you. Lillian. George's voice choked with sobs. Even though he was reluctant to part, he deeply understood that the highest realm of love was to let go. Lillian looked at the man over 6 feet tall in front of her with red-rimmed eyes, and her heart was slightly touched. On that night, George had also poured out his love for her so cautiously. She truthfully told him about her pregnancy, trying to scare George away. After all, few men could accept such a situation, but she didn't expect that after she said, I'm pregnant, and it's Elvis's. George was only stunned for a moment, and then he held her hand even more firmly. Lillian, I love you. I love you when you were 16, and I love you at 29. I love every part of you, and I love all of you even more. Whether it's good or bad, real or fake, in any case, as long as it's you, I will spare no effort to love you. At that time, she was so hurt by Elvis that she was inferiority complex and sensitive, and she didn't believe at all that anyone could fall in love with her like this. But now, George felt that his uncontrollable confession just now might trouble Lillian. His eyes dimmed, his thin lips tightened, and he was about to stand up and leave, intending to give Lillian some space. It didn't matter. Even if she had no feelings for him, he would still do his best to help her, even if they might never see each other again in the rest of their lives after a few days. Just as he was about to touch the doorknob, George heard a voice coming from behind him. Do you want to go to Switzerland with me? He turned around in shock and saw Lillian sitting on the hospital bed, smiling brightly at him. I mean, George, when everything is over, can you let me experience what it's like to be loved? George could no longer control his suppressed emotions. He quickly walked over and hugged Lillian in his arms. Of course I'd love to. Always. I'm more than willing. Elvis came to the hospital the next day, but the ward was already empty. Lillian had asked the nurse to tell him that she had returned home safely and told him to focus on his own affairs. Elvis was touched by Lillian's thoughtfulness. Recently, he had been so busy that he was at his wits' end. Lillian was in the hospital, and coincidentally, Luna was also ill and clung to him, not allowing him to leave. Now, since Lillian had been discharged from the hospital, he didn't have to worry about both of them anymore. What he didn't know was that while he was feeling relieved, Lillian had already started packing her luggage. This house was full of evidence of her love for him. The matching couple's bowls and dishes in the kitchen were carefully selected and brought back by her during a trip. She had been looking forward to using them with Elvis, but he rarely ate at home throughout the year. The painting she had drawn for Elvis on his birthday last year was still in the utility room, accompanied by all the garbage. When Elvis said he liked a certain singer, she asked someone to buy all the albums of that singer and place them in the most prominent position in the living room. But he had never listened to them again. In the bathroom, there were towels and bath towels of the same style but different colors, stacked layer by layer, hiding Lillian's little thoughts. She walked around and finally came to the master bedroom, stopping in front of the huge wedding photo hanging on the wall. It had only been a few years, and the edges of the photo were already yellowing. She remembered that the photographer had vowed that the wedding photo would never fade, just like Elvis's promise to treat her well for a lifetime. Neither of them could be trusted. She took the wedding photo off the wall without any hesitation and threw it, along with all the other items that carried her infatuated memories, into the trash can. When the court summons was delivered to the company, Elvis was extremely busy with business matters. Luna handed the document to him, and without looking up, he told her to put it aside. Elvis, you'd better take a look. It's from the court. Elvis was puzzled. He opened the file bag, and the more he read, the darker his face became. He didn't even finish reading it before he threw it to the ground like a madman. The documents scattered all over the floor, and Luna vaguely saw words like, filed a lawsuit, complete property liquidation within 7 days, and divorce procedure. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it finally happening? Elvis couldn't believe what he was seeing. He gritted his teeth, and the muscles on his face twitched slightly. Luna, take a good look at this. This must be fake. How could Lillian possibly divorce me? She chased after me for 10 years. She couldn't possibly divorce me. Luna picked up those documents and gave Elvis the answer he least wanted to hear. Elvis, it's real. Hurry up. Hurry up. Elvis kept urging the driver. The only thought in his mind now was to find Lillian and ask her face to face. She clearly loved him so much that she couldn't bear to see him frown. How could she be so heartless now and file for divorce without saying a word? Could it be that the divorce application she gave Luna on her birthday was real? Could it be that the new beginning marked on the calendar was today? Could it be that Lillian's coldness meant that she had already planned to leave him? No, it shouldn't be like this. It must be fake. It must be one of Lillian's ways of being petty. Although he was already close to the truth of the matter, he didn't dare to go any further. He was afraid that things would be exactly as he thought, and he was afraid that Lillian really didn't love him anymore. He prayed in his heart that all of this was just a dream. However, the dream ended. There was no Lillian in the house where they had lived together for 3 years, and there was nothing related to Lillian either. Elvis felt a sense of suffocation. His heart seemed to be gripped by an invisible big hand. The house was empty, and his heart also seemed to have a void. Lillian had really left him. He frantically searched for Lillian but found that all his contact information had been blocked by Lillian. For a moment, he couldn't think of any place where Lillian might be. It turned out that he knew so little about her. He didn't see Lillian until the day of the court session. She had cut her hair short and was even more radiant than before. There was also a strange man standing beside her. The two of them were chatting and laughing as they walked into the court together. Lillian had noticed Elvis long ago. After not seeing him for a few days, he looked much more slovenly. He hadn't shaved, and his clothes were full of wrinkles. But what did that have to do with her? Elvis blocked their way and angrily asked who the man beside Lillian was. George extended his hand and said slyly, "Hello, Mr. Elvis. I'm MS, Lillian's lawyer. MS. Lillian has entrusted me to handle your divorce case on her behalf." Elvis didn't shake his hand. After giving him a glare, he pleaded with Lillian in a humble tone. "Wife, don't divorce me, okay? We can talk things through. Don't leave me, okay?" Lillian looked around and deliberately put on a surprised expression. "Isn't Luna here? After we get divorced, you two will be the rightful stars and the moon. Don't look so gloomy. This is something to be happy about." Elvis smiled bitterly and tried to explain. "Wife, I know you have misunderstandings about me and Luna, but please believe that I really don't have any love for her. I only love you. For her, I have my reasons." Lillian didn't say anything, and George's voice came from the side. "Mr. Elvis, have you ever heard the saying? Judge people by their actions, not their thoughts." Seeing Lillian nod in agreement, Elvis became anxious. Ignoring the presence of others, he excitedly explained, "Wife, I'm sorry for hiding this from you for so long. My relationship with Luna is really just like that of siblings. And there's also a sense of guilt. I don't have any love for her. When we were kids, our two families were neighbors. My dad and her dad were both good friends and business rivals, until they competed for the same project. After that business battle, the Lee family went bankrupt. Uncle Lee and his wife jumped off a building, and all their property was taken back, and Luna disappeared without a trace. Perhaps in the eyes of adults, this was just a normal business battle. One side wins, and the other side suffers. But my heart has always been filled with guilt towards the Lee family and Luna. Those years when you were pursuing me, I didn't agree because I still hadn't paid off my debt. I wanted to find Luna, help her live a better life, and wash away the sins of my family before being with you properly. I thought I would never meet her again. Unexpectedly, she showed up before we got married. Every time I saw her pure eyes, I felt so guilty that I couldn't bear it. I gave her a job and took on the responsibility of an older brother, helping her and taking care of her. I know that I might have ignored your feelings during the process of making up for her, but that wasn't my intention. Please believe me, wife, from beginning to end, I've only loved you. As long as I can find a good match for her, everything will be over. It's just a little bit short. I didn't expect that because of Luna. We would come to this point. If I had known it would end up like this, I definitely wouldn't have. Wife, I've told you all the secrets that I've kept in my heart. Please forgive me. Let's get back together. I'll break up with Luna completely. I promise she won't appear in our lives again. I promise. Wife, I really was wrong. The decisive and capable president of Elvis Corporation, at the entrance of the bustling court, recounted his mistakes and cried as pitifully as a child. Lillian thought that perhaps in the past, if she had heard these words, she would have been very happy. Happy about Elvis's confession, happy about Elvis's love declaration, and happy that her feelings hadn't been wasted. At the same time, she would definitely have felt very guilty. Guilty that she had misunderstood Elvis, and guilty that she hadn't accompanied Elvis to face everything together. Instead, she had left him alone to atone for his sins. But now, she had already experienced a kind of death. She was no longer the Lillian who had Elvis in her heart and eyes. She no longer cared whether Elvis's love and sincerity were truly for her. After 10 years of wasted time, his hardships were also difficult, but they were far from as bitter as her pain of losing 2 children and the person she used to be. Lillian patted Elvis on the shoulder, and her voice was completely calm. Elvis, the court session is about to start. Let's go in. The property division was very fair, and the court process went quickly. Elvis was in a daze, staring blankly at Lillian, who was sitting together with George. The whole world seemed to have a black and white filter on, and in the double-speed lens, only Lillian was alive and moving. The noisy sounds around him couldn't reach his ears. Only Lillian's voice was so clear. She said, "Sign the papers." Elvis, under Lillian's cold gaze, he signed the papers as if possessed. When the last stroke was written, they were no longer legally husband and wife. When Elvis looked up again, his face was wet with tears. He dejectedly went to the Civil Affairs Bureau with Lillian. At the entrance, newlywed couples were happily cooperating with the photographer to take photos. It was obvious that the boys weren't used to taking photos. Their bodies were stiff, and their expressions were unnatural, but they were trying their best to cooperate with the girls. When the two of them looked at each other, their eyes were filled with uncontrollable love. He remembered the day they got their marriage certificate. There was a problem with the house that Luna had rented. He was in a bad mood and decisively refused when Lillian suggested taking a selfie. He left Lillian alone, wearing a white wedding veil, to leave awkwardly under the curious gazes of onlookers. He seemed to realize how hurtful he had been in the past. He wanted to say sorry to Lillian. "Sorry. My coldness extinguished all your enthusiasm." Lillian didn't give him a chance to speak and dragged him to register for the divorce. The feelings he had when he came to the Civil Affairs Bureau twice were completely different. This time, Elvis only felt a heart-wrenching pain. The moment the staff stamped the official seal, he even wanted to step forward and stop it, as if this way they wouldn't be separated. The moment he received the divorce certificate, Lillian smiled. It was the most sincere smile she had had in a month. "Let's part on good terms, Elvis." Elvis had a hunch that this might be the last time he heard her call his name. He stopped Lillian and pleaded, "Wife, no. Lillian, please take me out of the blacklist. I'm begging you." Lillian opened her mouth, a little surprised by Elvis's request, but she still generously took him out of the blacklist in front of him. They no longer had any relationship, so what did it matter whether he was blacklisted or not? Part on good terms. After saying these words, Elvis only felt a sour taste, spreading from the tip of his tongue to his heart. Lillian walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The sky was cloudless and the sun was shining brightly today, just like her mood, carefree and relaxed. Surprise! George appeared holding a large bouquet of Floyd roses. He peeked out from behind the flowers, making Lillian both surprised and delighted. She gave him a reproachful look and took the roses. "Lillian, I wish you a new beginning." Lillian nodded with a smile and let George solemnly take her hand. His big hand enveloped hers, giving her an indescribable sense of security. When they came to the car, what greeted their eyes was an even larger bouquet of flowers. 999 roses, huge and dazzling. George waved his hand in front of her stunned eyes, looking proud, like a puppy wagging its tail and waiting for its master's praise. He said, Lillian, I read online that a relationship should start with a bouquet of flowers. I've never been in a relationship before, so I can only believe these love Bibles on the internet. The bouquet in your arms means that I wish you a new beginning. And this bouquet means, George paused, and his tone was unwavering. It means that I wish you happiness. The pink and bubbly atmosphere was interrupted by an uninvited guest. Elvis walked over quickly and loudly asked what they were doing. George stood in front of Lillian, his face calm, but his tone was incredibly cold. Mr. Elvis, since you're already divorced, why are you still pestering her? As soon as Elvis walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, he saw the two of them. He remembered the man beside Lillian, who was her attorney. He followed them all the way to the garage. When he saw those flowers, he couldn't hold it in anymore. This guy was clearly pursuing Lillian. He was just about to speak when Lillian's cold voice came from behind George. Stop restricting me with the relationship of marriage. From now on, what I do and who I interact with have nothing to do with you. They drove away, leaving Elvis standing there alone in a daze. He should have known that someone as excellent as Lillian couldn't possibly have no suitors. He went home in a daze and collapsed on the bed. This was the bed where they had once snuggled closely together. Now, he was the only one left. The wall opposite the bed was empty. Elvis felt that something was missing, but he couldn't remember what it was for a moment. For some reason, his nose felt a little sour, and he began to recall whether Lillian had sat alone in this dimly lit room crying after he had stormed out during those days of quarreling. He fell into a deep sleep and then woke up in a daze. The room was dark. He touched his stomach and mumbled, "Wife, I'm hungry. Cook me a bowl of noodles, please." There was no response in the empty house. Only then did he remember that just a few hours ago, their marital relationship had come to an end. She's gone. As he murmured to himself, Luna called. She must have heard about their divorce and called specifically to comfort Elvis. The voice that he usually regarded as the sound of nature now, for no apparent reason, made him feel annoyed. Elvis said coldly, "Luna, let's keep our distance from now on." Luna exclaimed in disbelief and tried to explain, but she found that Elvis had already hung up the phone. Sitting in the empty house, Elvis felt as if he was about to be drowned by the overwhelming loneliness. It was so quiet tonight. There was no Lillian beside him laughing heartily while watching variety shows. There was no Lillian dragging him to play games. There was no Lillian being moved to tears by soap operas. He deeply regretted it. He regretted complaining that the sound of Lillian watching variety shows was too loud and chasing her out of the room to watch. He regretted mocking that Lillian was just a burden when she played games. He regretted scolding Lillian for getting the bed sheets dirty with her tears. He turned on the TV, and it automatically switched to the channel that Lillian often watched. A group of people were laughing and acting crazy, performing a show that he couldn't understand. He just sat in front of the TV like that for the whole night. It seemed that Lillian had taken a lot of things away. He started to be unable to find his tie, the clothes he wanted to wear, daily consumables. The refrigerator was empty, and even the stomach medicine he often took was gone. He knew that those things were actually still at home. Lillian had no reason to take them away. He couldn't find them for a while just because he never had to worry about those things before. Lillian had always prepared everything in his life for him in advance. He hated himself for being so useless and cursed himself. Couldn't he live without Lillian? But in the next moment, he broke down. Lillian had once stood there, holding up a dress and smilingly asking him which one looked better. His heart ached sharply. Well, he admitted that he really couldn't live without Lillian. Luna apologized to him cautiously, saying that it was all her fault that led to their divorce. Elvis turned his back to her and looked out at the bustling city with the lights just coming on through the floor-to-ceiling window. His voice was devoid of any emotion. "It is indeed your fault. Go to the marketing department. Don't stay by my side anymore." The sound of Luna sobbing came from behind him. She mumbled, "Why?" He didn't turn around. His voice was full of unfamiliar coldness and alienation. "You logged into my computer with your Instagram. The night you sent me home. I saw the photos you sent to Lillian from the guest room of my house. Luna, I thought you were innocent and kind. I never thought you would do such a thing. I really misjudged you. Just leave. Don't show up in front of me again. I've already done everything I could for you." When he saw those provocative words that Luna sent to Lillian, the more confidently he had supported Luna in the past, the more regretful he felt now. He couldn't imagine how Lillian felt when she saw those things. He had always complained that she wasn't magnanimous enough. Now that he thought about it, He and Luna had stabbed her in the heart together until it was full of holes. Such repeated hurt. Who could be magnanimous? It was Luna who had destroyed his love. He could never forgive Luna. The secretary hired another special assistant. The girl was young, full of vitality, and liked to smile at people with deep dimples. She was a bit like Lillian when she was 17. He called her over, showed her the photos that Lillian had sent to him before, and asked if she could make the kind of soup that Lillian made. The girl spoke without reservation, pointing at Lillian in the photo who was taking a photo with the soup. She said in a surprised tone, "Boss, is this the boss's wife? She's so pretty." Elvis's expression froze for a moment. He coughed, which was a kind of tacit admission. The girl continued, "I've seen my mom make this soup, but I can't make it. It takes a lot of time and effort. Boss, you're so lucky to have a wife like her. It takes a lot of time and effort." But he didn't even taste it and just poured it into the trash can. Regret filled his heart. He was sorry for her. The girl had never seen the boss in such a vulnerable state. Every nerve ending in her body was reflecting on whether she had said something wrong. She took out her phone and asked for help in the chat group with her girlfriends. "SOS. I seem to have brought up the boss's emotional wounds. What should I do?" Her girlfriend replied in an instant, "Leave it alone. Men are all like that. They don't cherish what they have when they have it, and then they start to miss it when they lose it. This kind of behavior is collectively called being a jerk." Elvis asked a friend to find out Lillian's new address and went to her place with a large bouquet of flowers. The city was only so big, and they had the same group of friends. Lillian sighed helplessly. She knew she couldn't avoid it. But when she opened the door and saw that it was Elvis, her expression turned cold. "Lillian, I was wrong. Can we start over? This time, I'll be the one to pursue you. I won't make you shed a single tear again." Lillian pointed at the flowers in his arms. "Tulips." Elvis nodded earnestly. Lillian said indifferently, "They're out of season, and I'm allergic to them. Last year, you went to the tulip base to take photos with Luna. Your clothes got stained with pollen. After I washed your clothes, I went straight to the hospital." Seeing Elvis speechless, Lillian continued, "Of course you didn't know. You were supervising the renovation of the new apartment you bought for Luna those days." After saying that, she closed the door. Elvis stared at the flowers in his hand in frustration. Like a young lad, he threw them on the ground and stomped on them a few times. He had never given Lillian a bouquet of flowers. Even the bouquet they had at their wedding was bought by Lillian herself. He felt extremely guilty and wanted to make up for Lillian. He spent an hour carefully selecting flowers in the flower shop and finally chose this bouquet of tulips. Feeling depressed, he could only ask his buddies to go drinking with him. His buddies scolded him for being so useless that he had lost such a good wife like Lillian. "Elvis, you don't know how much Lillian has sacrificed for you. Do you remember those limited edition sneakers you wanted a few years ago? They were so popular that you couldn't buy them even if you paid extra. Lillian queued up in person to buy them for you. It was winter, and the winter here is so cold that it can freeze people to death. She queued up for 8 hours before she managed to get a pair for you. We were all so envious. But when you got them, you complained that the color in person wasn't nice and threw them away without even wearing them once. Look at what you've done." And that time, we were all drunk, because you said your stomach hurt. She immediately booked the earliest flight back home even though she was on vacation with my wife abroad. My wife was so angry in Paris, but when she came back, she saw you enduring the stomachache and accompanying Luna to play the claw machine. We all envied you for being with Lillian. She's beautiful and kind. More importantly, she loves you wholeheartedly. There's no couple that doesn't quarrel. Break up with that Luna quickly. Maybe you can get back together with Lillian." Elvis felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Lillian had sacrificed so much for him, and even his friends could see it more clearly than he could. He forced a bitter smile and took another sip of wine. "Guys, give me some advice. How can I win Lillian back?" Someone suggested that he should cater to her preferences and buy some gifts that Lillian liked. Just as Elvis praised this as a good idea, he realized that when he searched his mind, he couldn't find anything that Lillian liked. He couldn't tell if Lillian was too easily satisfied or if he had never truly tried to understand her. He took another sip of wine and felt a bit drunk. At this moment, he desperately hoped that when he woke up from his drunkenness, Lillian would still be by his side, chiding him to drink less. Before he knew it, he had come to the community where Lillian lived again. He clearly wanted to go home, but his feet took him here involuntarily. The lights in Lillian's house were on. He just stood there stupidly under the streetlight, looking in the direction of Lillian's house. She must be reluctant to see him drunk, and she must be worried about his stomachache. He had to go up and see her, had to go up and hug Lillian. Everything was fake. He and Lillian weren't divorced, and there was no Luna between them. He and Lillian were going to have a child, and the three of them would live happily together. This was the real thing. Yes, this was the real thing. His eyes gradually became crazy and obsessed. At this moment, a man appeared and blocked his way. Mr. Elvis, are you drunk? When he saw who it was, Elvis felt a sudden surge of anger. He remembered him, the man who claimed to be Lillian's lawyer but also gave flowers to Lillian. Without saying a word, he punched George and roared, "Why the hell are you here?" George sidestepped to avoid the punch, and Elvis fell to the ground in a sorry state. "Of course I'm here to see Lillian, but I'm going back now. It's very late. It's not appropriate for you to be here. Mr. Elvis, please go back." Elvis cursed. "What right do you have to go to Lillian's house? Who the hell are you?" "I'm Lillian's husband. I won't allow you to see her." George corrected him. "Ex-husband. You're Lillian's ex-husband." "Mr. Elvis." He pulled Elvis up, maintaining his usual graceful demeanor. "I'm in a relationship with Lillian. I like her. So I'm sorry." After saying that, he took out a tissue and gently wiped the hand that had come into contact with Elvis. Then, he attacked Elvis's face with that hand. Lillian didn't expect Luna to come to her. The woman in front of her was clearly more haggard than before. The foundation couldn't cover the dark circles under her eyes. The pride in her eyes was gone, and she forced herself to speak. "Lillian, I didn't expect you to actually get divorced." Lillian didn't really hate this woman. The breakdown of every marriage was indeed related to a third party. But the greater reason often lay in the man's lack of self-control and moral deficiency. Of course, being ambiguous with a married man and blurring the boundaries between them under the guise of being close friends. She wasn't a good person either. Lillian took a sip of coffee and nodded, indicating for her to continue. Divorce was the right choice. A marriage certificate can't bind a man's heart. Elvis doesn't love you anymore. You've realized that, right? Lillian sized her up. Luna had a perfect smile on her face. Her eyes were provocative, as if she was examining her failure from a superior position. But her slightly trembling hand holding the cup betrayed her inner unease. Lillian understood and told Luna the truth that she didn't want to face in the gentlest tone. "Let me guess. Even though we're divorced, you still haven't managed to take my place and stand beside Elvis in a legal and proper way, have you? You." These words mercilessly uncovered Luna's scar. She had thought that after Elvis and Lillian got divorced, he would be eager to be with her. She had even prepared to coyly decline first and then agree. She had been fantasizing about receiving a surprise from Elvis all the time. But all she got was Elvis's anger and a transfer notice. There was a cold glint in Elvis's eyes. He said that she had destroyed his marriage. Luna couldn't understand him. Clearly, he was the one who had first entered her life and become a ray of light in her miserable life. Now, he was the one pushing her away and blaming her for being improper. How could people be so fickle? Even so, she still tried to cover it up. "Lillian, a woman who isn't loved is so pitiful. During all those days and nights when you were alone in the empty house, Elvis was always by my side. I asked him if he didn't need to consider your feelings. Guess what he said? He said no need. It doesn't matter. Lillian, your marriage was a joke from beginning to end. The only reason he was with you was out of pity for you." Lillian saw through her thoughts. She stared into her eyes with a profound look and said leisurely, "If calling me pitiful and pathetic makes you feel better, you can say whatever you want. I don't mind. However, your show-off is just an attempt to save face. If you had really obtained the happiness you wanted, you wouldn't have the time to seek a sense of superiority from me. Rather than trying to fill your restless heart by provoking me, it's better to take action and tie him firmly by your side. Luna, I've even given up my position for you. Don't let me down." After saying that, she looked at Luna deeply again. The playful look in her eyes made Luna feel uncomfortable. "I'll give you a gift on your wedding day." Lillian put down the cup and smiled politely at Luna. "The coffee is delicious. I have another appointment." "Excuse me." Luna was in a daze, savoring Lillian's words. After a while, the fighting spirit burned in her eyes again. She was determined to win Elvis. After dealing with Luna in the morning, Lillian received a call from Elvis in the afternoon. Lillian rubbed her forehead. In terms of being annoying, the two of them really matched each other. George saw her helplessness and rubbed her hair. "What's the matter?" After a long time, hearing Lillian's voice again, Elvis felt a bit sad. He carefully uttered one word after another from his throat. "Are you free this weekend?" His voice seemed a bit hoarser than before. Just as Lillian was about to refuse, she heard him continue. "Lillian, Grandma is ill. She wants to see you. Can you come to the hospital with me?" Seeing Lillian's silence, Elvis smiled bitterly. "If not, it's okay." Everyone had tacitly kept the news of their divorce from Elvis's grandma. Grandma was old and had a weak heart. She always thought of her grandson and granddaughter-in-law. If she knew that they were divorced, it would be like taking her life. Lillian had never had grandparents when she was a child. She had felt the family love that she had never experienced before from Elvis's grandma. She didn't want her to be sad, so she agreed. Okay. The moment she saw Elvis's grandma, Lillian's eyes couldn't help but feel sour. She had lost a lot of weight, and the hospital gown hung loosely on her. Even though she tried her best to maintain a kind smile, she couldn't hide her sickly appearance. "Grandma." Grandma Elvis responded with a smile and motioned for them to sit down quickly. "Why did you come? You're so busy with work. You don't have to come see me. When people get old, they're bound to have some illnesses. Grandma doesn't want to trouble you." As she spoke, she coughed, and it took her 2 minutes to finish a sentence. Lillian felt bad, and Elvis felt even worse. Grandma Elvis had a lot to say to them, and the two of them listened attentively. Elvis looked at Lillian sitting beside him. She was just like before, looking into the other person's eyes seriously when listening to them speak. She was so serene and beautiful. Elvis was in a trance, as if he had returned to the past. On ordinary days, the family members would gather together to chat. Grandma was talking, and Lillian was listening. It was warm and harmonious. He stared blankly for a while, and without realizing it, he reached out his hand to touch Lillian's face. This was his Lillian, his wife, the person who had chased after him for 13 whole years. Cough. Grandma coughed softly, bringing Elvis back to his senses. She teased, "I'm already an old woman. Don't show your affection in front of me. Elvis, you go out first. I have something to say to Lillian." Elvis came to his senses, stammered a dry laugh, and went out the door. The moment he closed the door, he squatted on the ground, hugged his head, closed his eyes, and fell into endless regret. "Grandma, what do you want to talk to me about?" Lillian sat down beside Grandma Elvis. Grandma Elvis took her hand and kept stroking it. The dry and wrinkled palms didn't feel good to the touch, but they made Lillian feel extremely at ease. "Lillian, how are you and Elvis doing recently?" "We're doing fine. We've always been fine." Lillian had rehearsed this countless times, trying to deceive Grandma Elvis and make her feel at ease. Grandma Elvis's expression was still as kind as ever, but a trace of sadness and heartache that was hard to detect flashed in her cloudy eyes. "Lillian, you've suffered." Lillian looked up in surprise. "Lillian, don't think I'm old, but I know better than anyone how good you are to Elvis. You wish you could break your heart into pieces and give it all to Elvis. But that child, he's muddle-headed. He can't see your goodness and always hurts you." Grandma thought that maybe he was too young, and when he grew a few more years older and learned to take on the responsibility of a man, things would be better. But Grandma didn't wait for that, and neither did you. "Grandma is sorry for you. I had already noticed that there were problems in your relationship. I was also being selfish when I tried to hold you back from pursuing your own path by asking you to have a child. Lillian, don't be trapped in the bitter fruit of love. Elvis doesn't deserve your sincere love. Leave him. Don't worry about Grandma. Grandma hopes for your happiness more than anyone else. Lillian, remember, you have to be happy." Lillian nodded with a choke in her throat. "Grandma, I've met someone who treats me very well. He tolerates me, respects me, and accepts everything about me. He's a person with stable emotions and a rich spiritual world. He can empathize with my sensitivity and vulnerability, and he can also capture my happiness and pride. I thought my heart was closed and could never be opened again until I met him. Grandma, I'm very happy now. Really." At the end, a drop of warmth fell on Lillian's hand. She couldn't tell if it was Grandma Elvis's tear or her own. The moonlight was dappled, and the two of them walked side by side under the trees at the entrance of the hospital. Grandma Elvis had fallen asleep. Elvis didn't know what she had said to Lillian, and neither of them mentioned it. He deliberately walked very slowly, as if this way he could stay by Lillian's side for a little longer. As they were about to reach the main entrance, Elvis knew that if he didn't say something, he wouldn't have another chance. That man named George must be waiting at the door. He stopped in his tracks, and Lillian turned to look at him in confusion. The moonlight shone on his shoulders. He lowered his head. His eyelashes fluttered slightly, and there were bruises on his face. An unprecedented sadness was deeply written on his face. Lillian, is there really no chance for us? The two of them looked at each other, and the air seemed to freeze. In Elvis's expectant eyes, Lillian silently shook her head. The answer was obvious. A huge wave of sadness swept over Elvis. He forced himself to hold on and said the last sentence with a tremble. I'm going to marry Luna. Lillian was stunned for a moment and thought for a while. I'll give you a gift on your wedding day. Elvis never expected that things would turn out like this. Luna threw the pregnancy test report on the table, looking as if she was ready to fight to the death. She ignored Elvis's disgusted gaze, crossed her arms, and said triumphantly, Elvis, I'm pregnant, and it's yours. Are you kidding me? Elvis picked up the report in disbelief and flipped through it. More and more cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He pretended to be calm and said, How can you prove that the child is mine? We've never had a relationship. Luna seemed to have expected that Elvis would say this. She smiled, a sinister smile hidden in her expression. Do you want to take a closer look at the date? Do you remember what happened in the guest room of your house when you were drunk? I thought you were just trying to excuse yourself in front of Lillian by denying what happened that night. I didn't expect you to have such a bad memory. Do you want me to help you remember? Lillian was upstairs that day, listening to you pin me down, listening to me say no, listening to us. You even said it's so exciting to do this at home at that time. Ha ha ha. Elvis threw the report on the ground and slumped back into the chair in a daze, mumbling, It's impossible. Repeatedly. Could it be that he really did such a thing in the house he shared with Lillian? But he couldn't remember. The memories of that night had evaporated along with the alcohol, and he really couldn't remember anything. What's impossible about it? Luna sneered, openly mocking Elvis's cowardice. Elvis was so angry that his eyes seemed to be on fire. He gritted his teeth and said, Abort it. Luna covered her stomach and took a step back, saying vigilantly, Abort the child. You're dreaming. Since I dared to come here, I've definitely left myself some backup plans. You don't want your sick grandma to know about this and get stimulated, do you? You don't want these scandals to affect the stock price of Elvis Corporation, do you? You don't want Lillian to hate you even more, do you? I'm telling you, if this child is gone, you'll regret it. Elvis had never thought that the woman in front of him could be so detestable. She had a poisonous smile on her face, pushing him to the brink. What exactly do you want? Marry me. Luna answered simply. I want you to marry me and give me half of your shares. Change the names of the house and the car to mine. She smiled wickedly and continued. Don't think I'm being greedy. This is what you deserve. Who asked you not to live a good life with Lillian and instead come to provoke me? Elvis completely broke down. Overnight, the Luna who was like an angel in his heart had turned into a devil, manipulating him and forcing him to face his mistakes. He missed Lillian. He really missed Lillian. He wanted to eat the food cooked by Lillian, wear the clothes ironed by Lillian, hold Lillian's soft waist, hear Lillian call him husband sweetly, and listen to Lillian say that she loved him and would love him forever. He covered his face with his hands, and tears streamed down through his fingers. He could no longer suppress his regret and pain, and he burst into tears. No, it couldn't end like this. He had to find Lillian. As long as Lillian still loved him, he could abandon the pregnant Luna, give up all his fame and fortune, give up everything, and run away with Lillian. He didn't believe that he couldn't compare to George. He had to get Lillian's answer. That night, Lillian shook her head silently, but he clearly heard her answer, and the sound of his own heart breaking into pieces. What was it like to marry someone you didn't love? Elvis knew it all too well. Luna became a lazy person, leaving all the preparations to him. The various aspects of preparing for the wedding made him frustrated and crazy. Luna was picky and never satisfied. He was angry and shouted that they might as well not get married. Luna was scared and finally hired a wedding planning company to handle everything. When he married Lillian, she didn't let Elvis worry about anything. From top to bottom, from the wedding banquet to the wedding candies, Lillian took care of everything by herself. Elvis was like a model just going through the motions. He participated in his first wedding without putting in any effort and without any sense of participation. He became even more regretful that he had been immersed in the joy of meeting Luna and had ignored Lillian's feelings again and again. Luna was too spoiled. Now that she had Elvis in her grasp, she stopped pretending and revealed her true temper. She was inherently restless. She wanted to buy this and that, squandering the wealth of the Elvis family. At the same time, she looked down on Elvis's actions, complaining that he didn't care about her or love her. She often sneered at him, saying that it was no wonder Lillian left him. Elvis was wary of